Hello, beautiful homemakers. I'm so excited that we are going to finish Chapter 11 of the original 1922 Fascinating Womanhood pamphlets. We're actually going to finish Pamphlet 5. In the last video, we discussed the first secret of the peculiarities of human nature in men, and that was developing a genuine sympathetic understanding, something that all men are desiring from a wife. We went quite in depth about it, so be sure to listen to the last video. Secret number 2 is every man's secret reserve. The great barrier to the gratification of this craving is the man himself. For, poignant as his desire for sympathy may be, it can scarcely conquer his almost insurmountable reserve, which balks it at every turn. This next sentence is in capitals. This reserve is the second characteristic which we wish to emphasize as highly important in influencing a man's attitude toward woman. By reserve, we do not mean bashfulness or timidity. The latter peculiarities apply to comparatively few men. Reserve, on the other hand, is an attribute of all. The braggart and the bully, for instance, could hardly be called bashful, though both may be reserved to a high degree. The very reason for the acclaim with which the braggart extols his own virtues is his realization that he is not appreciated. Insincere as he is, both with himself and others, he must of necessity be more reserved in his genuine confidences than men who make no pretensions. The bully also is human like the rest of us. He has his days of diffidence, of despondence, and of fear. But how seldom he humiliates his vanity by confessing such feelings to others. His reserve must actually be greater than that of others when it comes to the intimate thoughts and feelings that count most in life. This next paragraph is in all caps. The man of finer caliber is equally reluctant to expose his intimate, secret hopes and fears to indifference or antagonism. The prospect of callous underestimation or sinister inference is nothing less than appalling to him. He therefore sternly subdues every impulse to seek sympathy or appreciation. Nothing but the absolute certainty of receiving it, the sympathetic understanding that we talked about last time, will induce him to throw off his armor of reserve, and to give an inkling to others of the things that mean most to him. Even then, the slightest hint of misunderstanding or disrespect will shatter the illusion and drive him into his shell again. This is such an important point because guess what, ladies? We often don't even realize that we do and especially say things that he takes as a sign of disrespect. We don't mean it disrespectfully, but he sees it as disrespect. When we ask questions, we might be interested. We might be wanting to get to the why, but he's not ready to tell us this. And he just clam up, shut down if he feels attacked at all. Men think very differently than women. This is why learning to listen and not overtalk or talk over him is so important. We are continuing with the Jim story. This next section is called Jim's Tête-à-Tête on the Front Porch. In order to make this clear, we will again turn to Jim's tête-à-tête on the front porch. Let the girl but intimate by word, a yawn, a glance even, that the things he is now divulging, the fondest ideals of his life, are a matter of indifference to her, and Jim will wince as if struck with a lash. It may be the first time in his life he has ventured thus to express his feelings. To him, therefore, the confession is a matter of prime importance, over which he has probably pondered for days. The ideas themselves, the motives underlying them, have long been the mainspring of his being. If the girl looks indifferently upon such a crisis and fails to recognize its significance to him, she has indeed, so far as he is concerned, a heart of stone. Thenceforth, no matter where or when he meets her, he will not again risk a similar rebuff. Make this mistake, and it's over. He won't open up his heart again to you. Such is the case with every man. Next paragraph is all in caps. His longing for understanding, great as it is not sufficient to make him throw off his habitual cloak of reserve, except in rare instances. And even then he will quickly resume it again, unless he can bask in the full glow of an all-comprehending sympathy. The one characteristic, therefore, seems to be diametrically opposed to the other. Together, they constitute a conundrum difficult enough to tax any girl's wits. He needs the sympathetic understanding, but getting him to overcome his reserve is difficult. He must really trust you for you to overcome his reserve. Secret number 3, the craving to act the part of the superior male. The third and last of the more important characteristics of men is the craving to act the part of the man. The ideal man, who is the guide, protector, and provider. This is why men rarely date women who make more money than them. Many men can't handle it, and guess what? Many women can't handle it either. They become boastful and brash, and they begin demeaning him. I've heard countless women say this and demean boyfriends and husbands. And I've even heard people like Oprah and Gail and other women on Oprah's show talking about this many years ago, saying that they want a man that makes more money than them. It's just a natural trait for both women and men. You can poo-poo it all you want, but for the majority of people, it simply works out better when the man makes more money than the woman. At no time can he act this part as well as when he is guiding, protecting, or providing for some woman who for the time being seems utterly dependent upon his manly care. Now, I mentioned last time that when I met my husband, I made more money than him because he was only working part-time. But it was months before we found that out. In fact, we probably didn't even broach that subject until we were really talking about marriage, maybe even after I had the ring on my finger. But while we were dating, he paid for everything, every meal out, Disneyland tickets, day trip to Catalina, everything. And he planned all of our dates as well. Nothing is more flattering to his vanity. Nothing gives him a more enjoyable sense of power and manliness. And nothing will more quickly induce him to cast aside his reserve than this desire to play the part of hero. And then, for me, the hero part continued when I got to come home and take care of our child. But the 2 years in between, when I made more money than he did, and he was still working part-time, that was difficult. It was hard on him, and it was hard on me. I didn't like him having more time at home than I did, and he didn't like me making more than he did. It was difficult. But we knew it would be soon reversing, and we had discussed and said, let's get out of as much debt as we can. So much better, ladies, to be debt-free and bring money to the marriage instead. But we need not here dwell at length upon this characteristic, because it has already been discussed in Chapter 7. Where we emphasize the importance of making the man think you need him to kill your snakes for you. Still true. Feminists say that it isn't, but it's still true. Summarizing, we find 3 main characteristics in every man. First, a craving for appreciation. Second, an almost insurmountable reserve. And third, a desire to act or feel the part of man and hero. These 3 characteristics ought constantly to be borne in mind when associating with men. Watch for them in the men you meet until your knowledge of them is practical as well as theoretical. When you are sure you have such a knowledge, use it to win the man's confidence and interest. Do the things that will make the reserve appear unnecessary in his relationship with you. Give him the appreciation he craves, and artfully let him have as many opportunities as possible to play the part of the superior male. Regarding killing your own snakes, I once had a female friend in the military. We went to church together until she was transferred elsewhere. She was a very strong but sweet black woman. I never got to know her as well as I wanted because she was so reserved, but I knew that her longing was to be married. I know now from reading these pamphlets that because she was so strong and capable of killing her own snakes, that there was a far smaller pool of men than for a woman who wasn't so strong and commanding. Luckily for her, being a Christian, she is in agreement that when she finally does attract the attention of probably a dominant alpha male capable of not just being her equal, but protecting and caring for her, then she will cave like all women when we find our true man and allow him to lead. She knows that she wants a man who will lead her, their home, and their family. She not only wants this, she recognizes that it is God's plan for marriage. And what we both should have realized, especially because we had so many examples before us, was that the reason for her difficulty in finding a man was her lack of femininity from being in the military. She told me stories of women on base who were much sought after. They were the belle of the ball, able to pick and choose men. But that was only because there were so few females on base. My friend didn't get picked, not because she wasn't pretty, but because she wouldn't sleep around. She said that she would tell them, "Don't go out tonight. The men only want you for one thing." But they would laugh at her and say, "Why should they get to have all the fun?" Then, when it was time to go off base, these women were always shocked that they were left behind. They all went off without her, the former belle of the ball, and went to find another easy woman, or, when applicable, flirted with a feminine woman who was their ideal of a wife. Even Marilyn Monroe did this same mistake as these women. Her roommate and fellow actress gave interviews saying that they made a list of men that they just wanted to sleep with. She said that they both quickly realized, though, that that wasn't the ideal, and in fact, that was not what they wanted at all. They both wanted a faithful husband, home, and family. If Marilyn Monroe had been able to have children, it appears she would have quit the movies and been a joyful at-home mom. That was her true desire. But unfortunately, she wasn't able to have children. Now let me give you an example of how to let your man be the superior male. You do this when you're dating, so if you're married, you've probably gotten out of practice. I know I did until I read this book. And you'll notice some Laura Doyle help in what I'm about to tell you as well. I'm letting him be the superior male by guiding, protecting, and providing for me, by letting him make every single decision on when we are going to leave for a funeral that we will be attending in a different city down in San Diego. He has decided that we're going to leave the day before. He's decided what city we are going to stay in. He has picked the hotel. He has chosen where we're going to eat based on my likes. And he has decided what day we will come home. He kept texting me questions, and I just kept responding things like, "Whatever you think is best, dear. Sounds great. I've no idea. It's up to you. That's fine with me. That doesn't bother me." And so he just sent me the city we'll be staying in, and I said, "Wonderful. I've always wanted to stay in that city. Just take all the decision-making off your shoulders and put it on him. Just answering your preferences. But stop with the micromanaging, micro-controlling. That is how you turn into a superior wife. And that is not what you want." Oh, and by the way, we are back from that funeral by the time I have recorded this. And everything worked out perfectly. Now that was the end of chapter 11, and there's one wrap-up page called "A Suggestion of Tremendous Advantage." There is all the difference in the world between merely reading a book like this and digesting and assimilating it. Do not merely read these books. After you have read through each one of them, take a pencil and jot down the points which have appealed to you, or better still, make a note of all the points you remember. So for many of these videos, I have jotted down the important points on my website. However, there was a section of videos that I did not do that for. I always thought I'd go back and do them, but I haven't yet. Then read the booklets again and amplify your notes if necessary. Read these notes over and over. Refer to them daily. Put them to use whenever you can. Whenever you do use one of them, make a brief note of that. You will be surprised and delighted by the result. It will be richly worthwhile. And of course it's easy for you because I'm reading them to you, and at any time you can just go to the playlist Do it at double time. You can still understand every word that I say and review. Personally, I think pamphlets 3 and 4 are the best, but there are many great points in each of the pamphlets. Now my man just walked in the door, so I have to go. Thanks for listening. Bye.